This is the homepage of JupiterOne, and we're gonna just go through an example of where the graph and the relationships can reveal a lot of insights when you're going through the security analysis of your environment. All right, so I'm gonna use this example, and here's an example I have pre-constructed. But basically this query here is, let me run this query right here, and you can see that it has a number of things going on and has a bunch of traversals in the query itself. So what this query is basically looking for is starting with a developer, right, or an employee whose name is Carter, and looking on one way, right, so find the device that, or the user endpoint that this employee owns, right, which is a MacBook right here, and look up the user, right? So this user is, if you look at the information here, this is a Bitbucket user, which indicates that this employee is a developer, and he opened a pull request to submit some changes to a code, right? So to this particular code repo, and this code repo is deployed into this Lambda function in the AWS environment. And this is in our dev account, right, as you can see here. So now, so this is the starting point, right? So this is not necessarily nothing wrong with this. This is just particular sort of chain of events or a chain of relationships that's being represented here, from the developer using his machine writing code to where it ends up in the environment. So I'm going to do some analysis of this, right? So first, what I can do is I'm going to focus on this part, right? So this developer and his workstation, so this MacBook. So if I expand this device right here, so what you see here is a host agent. So I'm going to open up the properties of this. This is a carbon black sensor. This is the host agent that protects this device. As I continue to expand this, now what I'll see is anything else that's related to this host agent, right? So that could include alerts and events as well as this comes up. Once we've expanded this node right here, there are 360 alerts that was identified, all sorts of things that's going on with this device. And you can see the security policy on this particular endpoint that's protecting this device. Right. So far, not so bad yet, right? So we are seeing some alerts that's on the endpoint. That's probably all, part of the business as usual activities. But let's move over here to the user, right? To this particular employee Carter, and see what else we can identify. So here, if I expand the person entity, right? So this is an employee with a name Carter, and this is all of Carter's properties. And what you see here as relationships are all of the other user accounts, right? So all of these are different user accounts, like JupiterOne user and KnowBe4 user and Slack user and so on and so forth, right? So these basically shows within the environment, what else does this person have access to? Right? In addition to being a developer and has an account in Bitbucket, right? So this shows what else the user have access to from a user account standpoint. And this also shows you who is this person's manager, right? So Phil is Carter's manager. So what this immediately allows you to do is you say, well, if something's going on this person's device or something needs to be alerted, not only can I go directly to the person, I can very quickly know who the manager is, right? So imagine this is in an organization where you have thousands and even more, tens of thousands of employees. And having this context, even at this level, connected to everything else is important. So it makes the operational processes a lot more streamlined. So you don't have to go to different tools and look for different information. They're all right here all together. Now let's continue to move to the left, right? So there's more things that we can identify. We were just looking at the employee information, right? So all of these are directory related information. Now let's look more specifically on this Bitbucket user, right? This user account, let me expand this. this Bitbucket user is a specific user account, and you can see that, and it has these different pull requests that the user opened. And let me expand over here to the code repository. Now, if I open up this code repository, now you can see a lot more connections, right? So first of all, you see that this particular code repository has 11 code scanning findings. And what else is interesting here is this is part of the JupiterOne project, right? So this is a one microservice code repo across the many different ones, right? So for that project. So what you also see here are these dependency relationships, right? So there are 3 other microservices code repos or projects that depends or uses this particular code right here. And this code itself, right, this question service uses 12 other ones, right? So this is a dependency graph on the code, right? So based on the information that we captured from the code repository package dependency information manifest itself. So what this is telling us is that when this particular repo has 11 findings, it is possible that the other code repositories that depends on this one may also be impacted by those findings, those vulnerabilities. And what we also know is that Carter, right, so recently opened pull requests into this repo. So chances are either that developer introduced some of the findings, or likely that person can help remediate those findings. And if that person doesn't cooperate for whatever reason, right? So, and again, we know we have that person's manager information, right? So all of those, you can see that how we can chain the processes together and use the data and the graph to drive a more automated process based on those information.